Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Got my good friend Felicia Cravens on. She is a commentator on what's happening in the world around us with her friends over there at Free Radical Network, and she's a free radical, at least today. As long as that remains legal, she'll continue to do that. And you never know, man. We live in crazy times, and so don't let something silly like the First Amendment protect you and your liberties. Just ask that poor couple who didn't want to make a wedding cake for a same-sex marriage and got fined $150,000. I just sit there and I scratch my head, and it's like I live in a sci-fi world all of a sudden. Felicia Cravens.
I know, and the great thing about having confrontations like that, I think, is that so often the push from the left, they overstep. The people who were attempting to have a cake made said they felt mentally raped. No one in the country is going to support that except an extreme leftist. I mean, you have the same thing in Canada where a couple of people wanted to get a wedding ring made at a jeweler, and they had custom work done, and they had ordered it and everything, and then found out from a friend that later visited the shop that those people were in support of traditional marriage, and they felt that their rings would be tainted by the fact that they were made by someone who doesn't support same-sex marriage. And so those kind of things, they always end poorly for the left. In the short run, conservatives or traditional people might lose out, but in the long run, that's going to hurt the left.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's so funny because the left is all about free speech, right? That was their whole, underground newspapers and underground magazines and all that kind of mayhem back in the 1960s, and I'm with them. I'm all for free speech for both sides. We're the only country in the entire world that sanctions, codifies hate speech as acceptable. Where? In the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Yes. But, of course, this is the sort of thing that happens when leftists push so hard for what they want, and then they get it, and then they decide, well, we better protect it, so we better prohibit people from speaking out against it. The force of your ideas have to stand up to criticism, or they are no good.
Yeah, I think that's true. Hey, I heard that you this week checked out that little get-together up there in New Hampshire with everyone but Donald Trump, which meant it had really low ratings. It was a C-SPAN event anyway. I had another obligation that prevented me from doing it, but I heard you watched a bunch of it. What'd you think?
Right.
First of all, who did show up?
Okay, I saw Carson, I saw Perry, I saw Christie, I saw all of the people you would expect, the arena, and then I saw Kasich and Pataki. They were there. You have people that really haven't made a splash on the scene yet. And then all three senators, Paul, Rubio, and what's the other one? Paul, Rubio, and Cruz were all from, satellited in from Washington. Mm-hmm. And the way it worked is instead of having them go against each other, it was sort of the introduction to the candidates. It was really nice. They had a round where they had about 5 minutes each, and they talked about an issue or a thing that was important to them. Then they had to go around again and deal with a couple of secondary questions, and then they had maybe 30 seconds to sum up. It was a nice pageant effect where you could see them go across the stage and answer a question. Some of them got questions related to things that they had, the fact that they had run before. Perry got the question about the things that the government agencies he would shut down again, and he answered it rather humorously with, I remember that question. I've had that question before. This is the one he famously messed up on in the debates years ago. And then asked, people like Lindsey Graham were asked, why are you running? And it was a good opportunity for them, unfiltered from other candidates' comments or reactions, to debut themselves. I highly recommend people watching it. It's about an hour long.
Yeah. Really, only an hour. So that means they had very, very short answers.
Indeed. And that is a good thing at this stage, because you want all the candidates to be able to condense their message down as much as possible. You don't want them giving lectures. You don't want them giving long tirades about what's wrong. You want them to be concise and clear about what they want to do and what they need to change.
Okay, so of what you saw, who did you think did the best? Who did you like the most? If you were, by the way, was it done by the New Hampshire union leader?
I'm not sure. It was a media outlet, and there was a local, like a public radio host or someone who had a radio program in New Hampshire that was hosting. He was very good, by the way. I had never heard of him, but I don't pay attention to New Hampshire politics, even every 4 years when people have that happen. But no, I thought that Carly Fiorina did very well. She was very clear. She attacked Hillary, went after her. But then again, so did, amazingly, Lindsey Graham. He poked right at the senator. And I think that was...
He went after Rand Paul?
No. He didn't even try. And that was the reason that most people assume that he's in the race, is for Graham to discredit Paul. But he didn't mention him that I saw at all.
Huh. But he did talk about foreign policy, I'm sure.
He did. He went after Hillary.
That's all he knows.
That. Pardon?
That's all he knows is foreign policy.
There's pieces from every campaign that each candidate needs to pay attention to the strengths of the others. And I think that where he was talking about having been on the ground, where he's talking about the deficiencies of the vice president and the former secretary of state on the left, on the Democrat side, that you have to pay attention to that. Christie, I think, said that the entire field that we had running was very strong. And that was good. I like that idea that this is a team rather than a horse race.
Yeah, interesting. So, Fiorina, who else did you like?
I really thought that Kasich had some interesting answers on Ohio, the economy, and everything. I wanted Walker to have more time, maybe, because I don't know enough about him personally listening to him. I know about his record, but I didn't get to listen to him long enough. So Walker probably helped himself a bit there. The senators, it was harder to deal with because they were televised, rather than walking in the room and sitting with everybody else. But they each made strong points. I like this field as a whole for the most part.
It's a very impressive field as a whole. It's a good group, and Kasich's a squish. I'm glad he's in it because we need more squishes to dilute the squishes that are already in there. And, it's a pretty mixed group. There is a lot of reasons to think that a more true conservative can rise to the top, thanks to the fact that you've got a Bush, you've got a Kasich, you've got a Graham. Those people, you've got a Christie. Those four, in my opinion, are very moderate.
Right. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to have in the field as a whole. They're going to be.
I want more of them because that means that it's more likely someone with true colors is going to rise to the top.
Oh, absolutely. But I like too that it doesn't close the door for attracting people who are not quite there on the conservative side of the Republican Party yet. It still keeps their interest. It still brings up subjects that maybe we don't talk about so often in the rush to talk about the top issues. There's some second and third tier issues we need to have out there as well. And again, the more of this we have, the less energy, air, and time goes to whatever's happening on the Democrat side. And I like that.
Yeah, no question about it. Here's a quick rundown of the top 10 for Thursday's debate. Number 1 is Trump, who, by the way, has almost twice as much support as number 2, Scott Walker. And I'm telling you, every time they do a survey, it gets bigger and bigger. Number 2, Walker. Number 3, Bush, who's very close to Walker. And those are the only 3 double-digit candidates. Then after that is Carson, Cruz, Huckabee, Rubio, Paul, Kasich, which that shocks me. He's in the top 10. And then Christie, which shocks me. He's in the bottom of the top 10. What do you think about that list?
These things are going to fluctuate back and forth based on who gets press, based on who gets attention, based on who's done something smart or stupid or, has been in the news. At this point, it is all name recognition, just about all name recognition, depending upon whom they're polling. And I've always got a little bit of a uneasiness about the polling because the people they poll are the people who don't necessarily vote in these primaries. And so half of this is driven by folks who have no intention of getting involved in this debate. That always bothers me, that they do polling that way. Mm-hmm. But that said, it is a good thing that some of these candidates are having to sit this one out because it's going to make them work harder. This field that we've got is a good cross-section of a lot of different ideas within the conservative side within the Republican Party, and that's great. So the rest of the guys who missed the cut, they're going to be pushing and working harder and spending more time getting into more places. Again, that only helps us.
Yeah. Who do you think, I'm assuming, that all the expectations are surrounding Trump. What do you think for Thursday? This whole thing is going to be pretty much about how Trump performs.
Well, and, I found it interesting that he didn't show up to the New Hampshire event because this would have been an opportunity to be seen very clearly alongside everyone else as at least an equal among people who have doubted that, who doubt his commitment, or who doubt his ability to make an impact in this race. Now, that said, it's also a much better forum for him on a debate stage where he can dominate, and they'd have to basically turn off his microphone to shut him up.
Yeah,
so,
they're going to have to do that several times. And
right.
And what's ironic is he's the only one that he could do that, and his support would go up and not go down.
Right, but that's, again, positionally because of his oppositional nature to the party, the way that it is, the establishment. He's defining himself as oppositional, and so that base that supports that, yes, they're going to rally behind him for being, I guess, using jerky tactics because they agree with the premises. They agree with the things that he's supposedly fighting for. So, I'm not surprised to see that, but yes, that will be coming out to see whether he has, increased his support even more and how his behavior is in the field.
I think he becomes increasingly the man to beat. He increasingly becomes the man to beat, and that's shocking to me. And he's kind of like set up. He's set up for victory. He'd almost. And I'm serious. He could go very, very far because there's so much anger, so much angst out there that he could go extremely far. They keep on saying. How many times have they said he's already shot himself? If any other candidate has made the flubs he has made, they'd be writing that candidate's obituary.
Right, but at this point, you're still talking about a broadcast, a very large, high-level, what is the word I'm looking for? An air war in this campaign right now.
Yeah, that's a good
We've not
analogy.
gotten to the ground war yet, and that is a completely different game. And whether the people who find it very comfortable to shout and cheer and raise their fists from an armchair while watching things like this, whether those people are actually motivated to go out and do the ground war for that candidate is a whole different matter.
Well, we'll have to see. I guarantee you he's going to spend what's ever necessary to have an effective ground war. I tell you right now, he will literally run circles around anything that Romney produced. That is for darn sure. He's going to make sure it's done right. And that's it. I'm telling you, he's already hiring some of the best minds out there. Some guys that you thought would never go onto his campaign have begun to sign up. And so, anyway, this is going to be interesting to watch. No fan. I keep waiting for him to explode. But there's something about the guy that is very interesting.
Right. But again, the other guys in the race are the ones competing against each other. Trump is not just competing against them, but you're right. He is competing against himself. And he is one of the ones who would be able to do himself in more quickly than from attacks by other candidates. So that's going to put a different dynamic on this race.
Okay, final thoughts before I let you go. Actually, no time for that. Just give us your website.
Just freeradicalnetwork.com. Always trying to ask the hard questions and make people think there.
All right. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com.